Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. I hope, yes, you can see me and hear me, I think. So I'm very happy to be with you today. I'm going to speak a little bit about transformation at L'Oréal, a little bit about how I see the future of leadership in this very, very fast transforming world. So first, some words about myself. So as you just said, I'm a member of the executive committee of the L'Oréal Group. I joined L'Oréal in 2012 after a long career as a human rights expert in civil society organizations, in NGOs, in anti-racist organizations, in public authority, so quite a different spectrum. My commitment started in the 90s, in the end of the 90s, when I was actually in Germany, in Berlin, working with the Secretary General of Amnesty International at that time. And I don't know if you remember, some of you were perhaps too young and not yet there, but in the 90s there was a very, very huge the first scandals around companies' responsibility for sustainability and human rights. And at that time there was a man who was called Ken Saro-Wiwa. Ken Saro-Wiwa was a Nigerian environmental activist fighting Shell because thinking that the exploitation of the oil in the Niger Delta did not benefit the people or did destroy the environment. And he was arrested by the government. He had a trial, a military trial, where he said, today we all stay. It's not just me and us who is staying before the judge, it is also Shell, and Shell will have to explain in the future their actions and their responsibility for environmental and human rights violation. Actually, sadly, Ken Saro-Wiwa was executed, and 20 years legal procedure in the United States and European countries led to a lot of settlements between the company and the Ogoni people. Since '95, the expectations towards companies on environmental issues and on human rights have hugely evolved. So the level of scrutiny, how we look at companies, how the civil society, individuals, consumers look at companies, what are the expectations of consumers, but also the role of companies has very, very strongly evolved. So when in the 90s you were accountable to shareholders, to stock market, a little bit to employees, we are now accountable to everybody, to government, NGOs, civil society, consumers, and even to the civil society, these individuals who organize on social networks. From a responsibility from compliance with environmental legislation and social rights, we are now to what is your company's position on Black Lives Matters, on Me Too, on Fridays for Climate? So you see there is a huge evolution in how the role of companies is perceived in society. We're living in a period of companies have a hyper responsibility, and they have a hyper responsibilities in societies that are hyper emotional, hyper connected through to digital, hyper sensitive, hyper fragmented, but also hyper engaged. And that leads to a very, very different perspective on how companies need to behave, how leaders need to act and need to manage complexity. And I think this is really what I would like to talk about. So, for a long time, people told me, the CSR or sustainability department, that's a little bit the department of morality, de la morale, or the good conscience. I think that the chief sustainability officer's role, at least as I perceive it, is I have to anticipate the world that comes. And actually the world that comes, we see it very clearly, it's every day more present. The expectations that the world has to us are every day more present. And the COVID crisis was a very, very interesting moment, because in COVID crisis, a lot of companies, so I have lesser perspective on Germany, but I can speak of an international and French perspective, is, for example, in France, people are very, very suspicious towards companies. Successful companies especially, have very bad reputation. After the COVID crisis, 8 out of 10 French said that they are trusting companies. 2/3 of French people saw that companies have a positive role in solving the world's biggest challenges, such as climate change. And so why did people change? And that is also reflected in all international studies. So people's opinion changed because during the COVID crisis, a lot of companies were actors, positive actors in society. For example, L'Oréal, 2 days after the lockdown, we announced a solidarity plan. And in the solidarity plan, so our first objective was, of course, to secure our employees. We worked on for our suppliers, saying that we will pay them immediately so that they have more money available, more treasury available. We gave longer payment delays to our small clients so that they also have more treasury. We changed our production. We started to produce hand sanitizers. So we gave over 15 million product donations, hand sanitizer donation, to retailers, to farmers, to drugstores, to NGOs. We donated hygiene products to all NGOs in the world. Our foundation did a huge solidarity program for the underprivileged all around the world. And so that really supported very much what L'Oréal is saying for the last 10 years. So that our role in society is, yes, to have financial performance, but to have also a sustainable and responsible performance, and that we completely balance these two. So that strategic decision came in 2012, when the CEO, Jean-Paul Agon, recruited at that time 2 people, 1 person in charge of the digital transformation and 1 person in charge of the sustainable transformation. I was the one in charge of the sustainable transformation. So at that time, Jean-Paul Agon, who is a very visionary, intuitive leader, he said the 21st century is going to be about these 2 issues, digital tech and sustainability, and we have to be equally prepared. We did a first sustainability transformation from 2013 to 2020. So I'm not going to tell you the details about this because, that is all public in our reports. And we have reduced our carbon emission by 80%. We have succeeded in improving the environmental footprint of 95% of our products. Everything is eco-conceived nowadays. We have allowed the access to 100,000 people to employment in our value chain additionally. So we have a really, really good track record. And honestly, when the lockdown started and the COVID crisis, I was a little bit worried because I thought, okay, now we have done all this, we're having good results, but the next generation program that has to be much more ambitious, much stronger, are we going to get there? Because there is now this economic crisis that we feared at that time. It was March, April 2020. The lockdown all around the world, a systemic crisis that we have never seen. So in the first weeks, I was like, how am I going to be able to put sustainability, to keep it on top of the agenda? And actually, I didn't have to. I didn't need to do anything because there was complete awareness, and not just at the level of Jean-Paul Agon, our CEO, but the whole executive committee, the whole board, and actually the world leaders and our consumers, that sustainability is more important than ever. What we saw with the COVID crisis is that what does a systemic crisis do to our economies, to our companies, and to society? COVID crisis was a very, very small crisis compared to the climate crisis that is going to come if we do not manage to get climate warming under 2 degrees. So then the COVID crisis is just going to be a nice memory compared to what is coming. So people, leaders, world leaders are aware of that now. They are aware that this is huge and that we have to do everything we can to avoid systemic crisis. Because if we don't, companies can just operate in peaceful, functional, prosperous societies. And so we have sustainability is an essential part of that. So actually what we did was we took a step up. In June 2020, we announced the next generation of our sustainability commitments. And actually, this was not, some nice targets. These are huge business model transformational targets. In 2020, we announced that 95% of our ingredients are going to be biosourced or coming from natural ingredients or abundant minerals. Can you imagine the change? We were founded by a chemist. For us, the future of chemistry is green chemistry. 95% of our ingredients are coming from there. 100% of our plastic is going to be recycled plastic. We are going to keep our land occupancy flat. Our carbon trajectory is 1.5 degree. So we designed our targets, our concrete sustainability targets, not anymore in looking at ourselves and saying, okay, what are the reductions we can make? We designed our sustainability targets in a very different way. The way we designed it was saying, what does the world need from us? What does science tell us that we have to do to be aligned with the planetary boundaries? And that is a complete mindset change. It is a complete mindset change because if you look at yourselves, most of us have done that. We said, okay, we will reduce by 20, by 30%. We will do that. There an action, there a pilot, and so on. That is not sufficient. We need now to define targets that respond to the world needs and that bring in, that are aligned with science. So that is what we did. So how? And then we created an impact investment fund with an additional 100 million. And so why could we do that? And so this is where I talk to you a few more minutes about leadership and change management, because I think that is important in all issues. So why we could do that was because I'm not going to explain you change management because you know that very well. That's what you do. But sustainability needs more than just change management. Sustainability needs a vision that is more stretched. You cannot look at just what is possible. You have to do what the world needs from you. A vision that is stronger. The leadership also, the sustainability needs also a leadership from you that is very individual, that is about the vision of society that we want to build. Yes, you all have to manage complexity daily, all the time. That's your job. But now we have to look at not just how you manage complexity, looking at yourself and at your company, but looking also at the complexity to reconcile it with the world that we need to build. So the world we need to build is, of course, sustainable and inclusive. And so that needs from you as leaders, I think, that the kind of leadership that I have experienced at L'Oréal is working. You need a strong humility that is coming from, I know, we have to say, I think, and I'll take responsibility for the decision, even if I don't not yet know. It's about authenticity and sincerity. People, stakeholders, journalists, everybody will look for incoherence between what you say and what you do. And so what we have to say is we are not perfect. It's not about the photo, it's about the film. And the film is about sincerity and authenticity. And we need for that a lot of courage. So I'm coming to an end because I see that our moderator is showing me discreetly that I have to hurry up. So I'll do that. Even through the camera, I can see that I'm a little bit wrong. So, we live strangely in a world where we thought that we humans and business and profits, we do not need to pay attention to other forms of lives and to the ecosystem. And now that led to a world that is threatening our own survival. And so I would like to end with Alexander von Humboldt, who was a very visionary German, unfortunately a little bit forgotten now. And he said very clearly in his book, Cosmos, that we have to have an ontological humility to be conscious that we belong to a world in which, to a whole, to a whole on which depends the survival of each of every one of us. So we are part as businesses of that whole. We have to be connected with that whole, and we have to take responsibility. So the leader of the future will need to define success differently, meaning that yes, it's your success, it's your company's success, but it is also about your capacity to reconcile, to respond to your company's and the world's needs. And that everybody, I think, has to do. And that's what we try to do at L'Oréal. And so I wish you a very good afternoon. I know that my speech is a little bit out of what we are doing the rest of the day, but it is also valid for a lot of other transformations, I think. Thank you.
Alexandra, thank you. And I don't see it like you said in the last sentence, because it's so enriching. And of course, our focus is on manufacturing and logistics. But here we need this long-term perspective and vision. And of course, we can do so much, especially if we talk about climate change. I remember the Bosch Energy platform, for example. So thank you very much for your insights, ideas, and sharing this vision.